We have received a presentation from almost all of those that we have invited to come talk to us. And I think we are ready now to ask our questions. And please, those who have made presentation, take notes, because I'm just gonna open for questions from the members, and then just take notes, and then when we come to answer session, then we'll then allow all of you to answer, those who have been asked questions, of course. So maybe before I do that, I just want to clear up some few issues, particularly from the presentation of PPA. Before I open up to members to ask questions, if you can just clarify me whether there is any agreement between PPA and the City of Cape Town. I noticed that from the statement of the mayor and the correspondence from the MM that was sent to the Director General, they are very emphatic that there is no agreement between PPA and the City of Cape Town. Can you confirm that there is no agreement? And if there was no agreement, I just want to find out on what authority were you acting to assist? Because I'm sure that when you come and assist, it must be on the basis of something.
Honourable Chair, that is correct. There is no contract or contractual agreement between PPA and City of Cape Town. And as I mentioned in my presentation, with reference to the few communications that there were, of which we have the screenshots in the presentation, that every time when they acted with regards to assisting SAPS or law enforcement, it was whenever they were actually contacted on the spot and asked, can you come and assist?
So you assist when contacted, but there's no agreement on how you're supposed to assist them.
If you don't mind, Honourable Chair, just repeat that, please.
I'm saying you get contacted and you assist, and then there's no agreement about how you are supposed to assist,
no,
the remuneration of that, because
there's no formal agreement on that, and there is obviously no remuneration for that also.
Okay. Who appointed you?
Our clients from Fourth Beach, some of the residents there, and also then with reference to Camps Bay, some private business owners.
Okay. Because I saw some business initiative in here, Clifton Beach Business Initiative. So is that the institution that appointed you? Or? I saw it in your bundle of documents.
Those are the private residents that came together. We call it that they formed an initiative, but there are only certain participants in that.
Okay.
And then obviously the business owners of some businesses with regards to Camps Bay.
Okay, and then on your bundle of documents, annexure PPA 6, there's pictures of items that you have confiscated from the beachgoers. So when you are confiscating all this, under what authority were you acting? Because you did say you confiscated these documents from the beachgoers who were obviously at the beach. So meaning you had to access the beach and do law enforcement at the beach? Can I find out under whose authority were you acting when you were doing this?
Your Honourable Chair, these items were pointed out by beachgoers, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation. And furthermore, it was also when asked by either law enforcement or even the public to assist. As I said, they would point out, they would say there's a problem because our security officers are in the vicinity there.
Yeah, but I want to find out, because when you made your original submission, you were saying that these are the items that were confiscated by yourselves. Dangerous items as part of doing law enforcement there. So I wanted to find out under whose authority, or are you aware that you can't act like a police?
Yeah, that's correct,
You can't
Chairman.
do policing function.
We are fully aware of that.
Yeah, but under what authority were you acting to get into the beach and to confiscate these items, dangerous as they are, from the beachgoers? Meaning that by the time when you were doing that, you were performing some function, which in this instance was a policing function. Now I want to find out under whose authority. Was it part of the agreement with the police that you'll go in the beach, confiscate dangerous items from the beachgoers, or what?
Honourable Chair, let me just refer back here to get some more info on this. Honourable Chair, again, it was not that we were mandated to do that, but the majority of these items were pointed out by beachgoers. And I mean, do the guys now have to turn a blind eye and just let it be? Or should they actually, from their part, at the spur of the moment, protect the people and, as I said, recover what they can and hand it over to law enforcement?
Okay. No, I just wanted to find out under what authority were you acting when you did this thing.
Honourable Chair, I would say it's under the authority of our clients, with the mandate that we have with our clients to protect them and their property also.
To go into the beach and then confiscate stuff from the beachgoers, this stuff which are shown on the pictures here. So it was under the authority of your clients. You know, I want to understand what that mandate of your clients begins and ends. Does it involve you looking after the property of your clients, or does it involve you going into public spaces and doing law enforcement in the public spaces?
Honourable Chairman, it involves looking after their private property and their immediate area there.
Not the public spaces?
No, not the public
You only
space.
go to public spaces when you're invited?
That is correct, Honourable Chairman.
By the police?
Or by law enforcement, which were the cases, yeah.
Okay. And there is no formal arrangement between yourself and the police?
No agreement, but as SABS and law enforcement on a daily basis work hand in hand with security companies. That is the same.
Yeah, because the point that I want to understand is that the beachgoers are not on a private property, they are on a public space, on a public property on the beach. They get approached, these things get confiscated from them in a public space by yourself, a private security company. That's what I want to understand, that you do all these things not in the private property of your owner, of your clients, but in the public spaces. Can I say, is that the case?
Yes, Honourable Chairman.
Okay. Before I hand over to the members, let me just find out from the City of Cape Town. There is a picture here that you distributed, which shows the time of 8:30. Now the same picture is on the bundle of documents that comes from the PPA. I just want to understand that you are just exchanging notes, or where did you obtain the picture?
Thank you, Chairperson. Again, as I referenced earlier, I can understand that it may seem that the picture is identical, but the PPA had supplied a different time to the picture that they had shared. So I can't speak to the fact whether or not it's the same, because I have not been able to see that. However, the picture, the photo that we have presented to you today is taken just down the walkway from where the lifeguard hut is situated as you enter the beach to the concourse which leads you to the center of the beach facility. And that's where the picture has come from.
No, I wanted to find out whether is it this, because for me it looks the same. It's exactly the same picture.
Chair, apologies, I'd misheard then earlier. It
Okay.
is exactly the same picture. And so I then would have to believe, or perhaps the ED can guide me here, whether or not this picture was shared with PPA at any of their interactions.
I'm not aware, sorry.
This one.
Mr. Chair, sorry. Yes, the photo was given to us. Whether it was shared with PPA, I'm not aware. But this was provided to us. This is a picture taken from the camera just on the side of the Lifesavers Hut on Clifton. It does seem as if they were provided the same one. I'm not aware of that. But this is what was provided to us, and this was included in our presentation, sir.
Okay. Provided by who?
This was provided to our staff that was investigating the matter for us. I wouldn't be able to give the specific name, but the internal staff who were investigating it produced the photo for us as part of our submission.
Okay. Well, I needed to know who provided this to you. Will it be PPA that provided it to you?
As I've said, I'll have to check with the staff member concerned. I can always come back to you, but I wouldn't be able to know who specifically provided the picture.
Okay. No, I wanted to ascertain the extent to which you guys compare, share notes,
Okay.
exchange.
Mr. Chair, let me
Info-
just kill that. We never met with PPA. I never exchanged any notes or met with PPA at all, sir. I give you that assurance.
Okay.
I only communicated with him on email on the 26th of December, the morning of Boxing Day, in fact. If I can just, Mr. Chair, just to give you some background. The incident, we were informed about the incident on Monday morning, the 24th. The incident happened Sunday night, the 23rd. We were informed about it on Monday morning, the 24th. We were actually informed about it via a media query. There was a journalist who posted a media query on a WhatsApp group that we have with lots of journalists, asking a very simple question: are there bylaws prohibiting people from being on the beach after 8? Which we couldn't understand where the query came from. As events unfolded during the course of the day, we then got wind of what had actually happened, and there was electronic media releases that was issued. What I then did was to make sure there was not a repeat of this. I've got the contact details of a gentleman called Bernard from PPA. I made contact with him late on Christmas Eve, the 24th, and on the 26th, which was Boxing Day, which is, as is indicated, one of our busiest days of the year, I then got hold of his email address and I emailed him and my staff indicating in no uncertain terms to PPA work on the beach. They've got no authority, no mandate from us. So that was the only way that I'd ever communicated with PPA was via email. There was never any exchange of notes or anything. All the information that we had, we handed over to CEDA when they came to see our offices. So we even met separately with CEDA and PPA.
MMC, you wanted to say
Yes,
something?
Chair, thank you. Just to add, though, that during my presentation, I had made reference to the fact that the mayor and his spokesperson had met with PPA close to the end of last year, but this was in the absence of ED Richard Bosman, who's sitting next to me. So
Okay.
from Chair, apologies. So from my side, what I can do is to be able to ascertain if PPA is not able to tell us today where they got the photo, is to check whether or not the mayor at that meeting had shared the photo with him.
Okay. PPA?
Honorable Chair, yes, we received these pictures from one of our clients living in the area there, and it is specifically from his own camera on his premises.
Okay, so the picture originates from your client,
That's correct,
and
Honorable
your
Chair.
client shared the same picture with the city of Cape Town,
I wouldn't know, Honorable Chair.
because it's the same picture that you are using, this one.
No, I agree with you
Yes.
that it is the same picture, but I do not know who shared it with him.
Okay. No, I just needed to know because here we've got two separate entities, no working relationship, there is no formal agreement signed, but you come here today and as part of advancing your argument, both of you, you are bringing us one picture. So the question is, how did it happen that you've got this same picture, the city of Cape Town have got the same picture, when there is no relationship? And it comes from one source, because these two pictures are the same. Comes from one source. So I just wanted to find out whether there is that relationship between PPA and the city of Cape Town to an extent that you can utilize the same documentation to come and prove what basically is the same point, that there were still people after 8 at the beach, using this picture to prove to us that there were still beachgoers at the beach. But anyway, let me just, I still have got more questions, but for now, let me, MMC, you want to
Yes, Chair, I
add?
can provide clarity on where the photo has come from. So PPA had shared the photo with the media, and we had then got the photo from the media taken from the CCTV camera, which they say is from the client's house.
Okay, so you got this from the media.
Yes, Chair, and there was specifically an article, if I can just reference it for you, an opinion piece written by Marie-Louise Antoni, whose article had shared that photo as well on the 6th of January.
Okay. But the gentleman from PPA says it is a picture that was taken from the camera of one of his clients, not the CCTV camera. He says the camera.
No, sir, if I listened correctly, the gentleman said that the photo was taken from the CCTV camera of his client, if I heard him correctly.
That is confirmed, Honorable Chair.
Okay. All right, let's go to the to the members who wants to, if they've got more questions to ask. Honorable members, Honorable Steenkamp, Peden, Honorable Nyambi, and Honorable Makobela.
Thank you, Chair. I had my hand up now. I don't think you saw me. I just wanted to thank you for your ruling, for the clarity that you gave on Rule 188. That gave clarity to everybody to know exactly on which rule and why you asked the lady to leave. So thank you very much. My questions, I will start with, it's a little bit democrat, but I'll start with the City of Cape Town. When specifically looking at the photo that they provided now, there's a lot of activity on the beach. I would like the MMC to just elaborate as to, you know, he already explained, you know, the time frame, etc. But I'd just like him to elaborate on that, specifically concerning the picture. And then also, I want to know if the City of Cape Town have any plans in place to ensure ongoing beach safety, specifically going forward. I think especially after we've heard today, it's not necessarily in someone's mandate that the guys that actually did it. So the city, I would like to know if there's any specific plans. Then going on to, okay, there's just one more for them. The sheep. I want to know why the city was prevented from stopping the slaughtering of the sheep, as they mentioned. Then to the ladies from the community. Let me just quickly see. Sorry, I wrote like a crab. Shut up, Thomas. Okay, so you said that the security came to ask you to leave. I want to know if you don't mind. I understand the painful issue that you have. I don't want to scratch on that, but if you would just elaborate a little bit more as to, they asked you to leave and then they left. Was this the same story with everyone? Was there any force? Just explain as to how the incident exactly happened. Because as a couple of people have mentioned today as well, the media will say one thing, and then the next day, whether it's this one newspaper, tomorrow the newspaper says something else. I'd also like to know, you said that there was structural racism that the City of Cape Town were aware of. Could you please elaborate on that, if you don't mind? And then, let me see. Okay, I think I'll leave that there. To PPA, I would like to know the pictures of the alcohol that you have in your binder, sir. Was that confiscated on the 23rd, on the day of the incident? You said that your staff was on the beach simply for the patrons of the beach's safety, but you also said that they only guard the property of the people that hired you. Now, I also have my own security firm looking after my property, but they won't go into my neighbor's yard because they don't pay them. So why would you go onto a beach and still maintain your argument of saying it was done for the people that pay you, as that is national property? The beaches aren't there's no private beach. I'd also like to know from the police, you mentioned that there's no suffering that could be seen on the sheep. But with all due respect, sir, if you've ever seen a sheep just laying like that with his paws like off his hooves or whatever, I'm not familiar with him, as calm, if there was a sheep that you take alive to go slaughter, it will move, it will scream, and it will shout, and it will put up a fight. All due respect, the videos on social media, not the pictures, the videos, which was live, showed it in a very, very still state. I'd like to know if red lights didn't go up for you, and why. Because you go on a lot of technicalities, and I understand that. I get that there's lots of gaps in the law here as well. But if we go on facts, the fact is that there's a Meat Safety Act. That is national, that should be nationally enforced. Do we know what happened to the sheep thereafter, after it died? Was it eaten? Because if the meat was consumed, then it can definitely fall under the Meat Act, the Meat Safety as well as the Red Meat Act. To the department, the picture that you have here, Radia, the one with the four access controlled ones, is this at Clifton or in Cape Town, or can you tell us where they are? Just for a bit of clarity there. And then I also want to know from the department specifically, the sheep were slaughtered, and I take into account that it's people's right and cultural right. I absolutely don't go against that. What I would like to know is environmentally, there also are certain acts. This is a public space, it's a beach, which is also an ecosystem on its own. I would like to know, was the blood cleaned up? When was it cleaned up? How long after? Who cleaned it up? Was there an environmental assessment that took place either before, during, or after? And if not after, why not? Because while respecting everybody's rights, I also don't think that the fact that there was blood on a beach, which is sand, it's going to seep through depending on how long you leave it, and that should also be taken into consideration. And then, Honourable Chairperson, I would like to ask you a question on the statement that you released on the 28th of December. You used words such as appalled, barbaric, condemn, and racist removal. Today was supposed to be a fact-finding mission, if I can put it that way. And Chairperson, quite frankly, I think that when you compare the statement to what was happening today, it's two different things. So would you retract your words saying that it was a racist removal or barbaric? Because I think from all the evidence and all we've heard today, it was one entity that did it. It was not the City of Cape Town, it was not the police, it was a private company removing people. So I think I will stop there.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Steenkamp. At least for in a while now, the chairperson has not been receiving questions, so at least I've got one now. Questions to answer. I'll answer to the best of my ability. I've got an answer to that question. But let's move. Honorable Padden.
Thank you, Chair. After listening carefully to all the presentations, there's no doubt in my mind that this incident has been politicized. And this committee has a proud record of rising above party politics. So today's meeting has deeply disappointed me. I'd like to quote Tony Leon. He says, "The power of logic has a powerful swim against an ocean of emotion." The power of logic has a powerful swim against an ocean of emotion. And when I talk about logic, I refer specifically to the sciences of reasoning, deduction, and argumentation. So I suggest everyone in this room, and us as a committee, to take the emotion out of this and deal with the facts. Now, I come to my question, sir, because I'd like to start with Ms. Samai. Did you lodge a complaint? Because the Mayor Plato says only Mr. Jacobs complained. Okay, that's number one to you. Number two, were you part of Mr. Faiz Jacobs' group? Yes or no? I don't want an elaborate answer, I want a yes or no. People were instructed to leave the beach, as you said, on the said day. Question is, was everyone asked to leave, or only people of color? Because this picture talks differently to you what you said. So I think this meeting and this room and the people in here need to know the answer to that. Who do we believe when we see that picture? Now, coming to the police, private security companies all over South Africa have boomed because of ineffective policing, which is a national competency. I know there are many dedicated police officers, but the decline in SAPS services is a reality. Fact. The presentation of the residents referred to a decline in SAPS services. Now, this is the question to the police. Are there any crime records during the 3 months before the incident? Because I am told by my research that there was a spike in crime in this area that we are dealing with. So 3 months before the incident. And the evidence suggests so because you seem to ask for help regularly. Now, the question I'd like to ask the CPF, who's sitting behind me, sorry I can't see you. Do the residents of the Camps Bay area and Clifton have faith in the local police? And are they reporting their crimes, or have they given up because of inaction? Because what I'm told with the people that I speak to, that if it isn't an insurance claim, they won't even open up a case number. So I'd like the CPF to answer to the residents of the specific area. I think we need to know from the City of Cape Town, because SAPS tells us in their presentation that no bylaws were violated. I'd like the City of Cape Town to reply to that. I think we need to get clarity on the bylaws. And this question can either be answered by PPA or CPF. Are there other security companies working in this Clifton area? I don't believe that PPA is the only one. And if yes, who and what relationship do you have to your opposition? Because it would be opposition. I mean, it's a private business. And this one is for the DG, who initiated this from the letter dated 29th of the 12th. And the letter was sent to the City of Cape Town, as we know, who responded on the 10th of January. But what I heard from the DG is saying this meeting today is totally premature because they were dealing with these issues, intergovernmental issues. So I'd like to know from you, DG, was this meeting premature as the chairperson jumped the gun here and getting an expensive delegation? People have flown down from Joburg on an issue that could have been dealt with at another level. Chair, that's me for the moment.
Okay. Honorable Nyambi.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, my first question is based to PPA. They talked about rape that occurred on the 23rd. What I want to know, Chair, is that were the two teenagers raped at the beach on that day? And I just want to know, was the case reported to the police? The second one, Chair, is based to City of Cape Town. As the case was reported on the 26th, they were doing investigation into the Clifton Beach lockdown incident. What are the key lessons learned, and what are the measures envisaged to safeguard against the similar measures in future on the beach? The last one, I just want to know that the PPA, did they follow a protocol in evicting the beachgoers lawfully? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Makubela.
Chair, thanks. though I thought Honorable Hadebe wanted to speak. So if he's forfeiting his right to speak, that's fine. He must not be tricky and wanting to speak immediately hereafter. Chair, thanks. And let's thank all the people who came and made representations today, because they helped us to understand the issue at hand better. We now have got the context. A lot of things have been cleared in terms of the presentations that were made. Unlike us having to read about the issues and perhaps being far away from where the incidents happened. Now I may speak to some degree with authority on what actually happened. Chairperson, one of the issues that is unfortunate is that people talk about this issue being politicized. Let me declare, as I should believe it's public knowledge, I'm a member of the ANC. And it may be that in the input that was given, as read out by the MMC, the ANC is being condemned for having somewhat taken advantage of this issue. I am a political being, and yes, people involved may be political. But as Honorable Pardon indicated, it would help if we were to remove ourselves from politics, isolate what may be political and get into the issues. At times it's a very difficult one because these issues involve people and themselves may be political in nature. So we may be unable to remove ourselves totally from what may be seen as a political act out there. It's a very difficult thing to do. But having declared that does not mean that we must be afraid to confront issues simply because that will be seen as being political. We must get into those issues, get to the bottom of the issues, and be able to address some issues that are confronting us if we have to do that. Chair, again, let's take out racism if we have to confront issues. Yes, they will be affecting people of particular races, but we may not be afraid again to deal with issues because they affect people of particular races and so on. We have to deal with them if they need our attention. So we'll be able to do so. Let me get to the issues, Chair, that needs to be handled. The first being that we are talking about a public space, which is a public beach, and a private entity operating or which happened to operate on the date in question or several dates that have been referred to within a public jurisdiction. And that having been done when there's no written or contractual agreement with that entity. That's the main thing. And that fact has nothing to do with any racism, has nothing to do with any politicization of the matter. It's simply because you need to operate in a public space. If you are a private entity, once you have been called upon and there's a written agreement that says you can operate in that space on behalf of a public entity. The City of Cape Town says there's no written agreement. So they were not called upon by the city, or no law enforcement agency invited them formally to operate in that space. SABC says there's no such arrangement. Now, they themselves accept it, that there's no written agreement as PPA. They have accepted that. And they say it's unfortunate that law enforcement agencies are not acknowledging and taking responsibility, that are allowing them to fall on their own. And indeed, perhaps it may be an unfortunate thing, but PPA should have known that to step into a public space and start enforcing whatever they did there without any written agreement was on their part a problem. They should have known that you can't enforce any laws or bylaws, which I'm told there is no such a bylaw. Perhaps for record purposes, Chair, the City of Cape Town must tell us whether there is any bylaw that exists in this regard, so that it's not something that we hear from other people. They themselves must talk to the matter, whether there is any particular bylaw. And if there's no bylaw, and whoever was representing the city at some point might have lied in this regard to say there is a bylaw that exists when there's none, we must be told what was the reason to lie in that particular regard. Chair, there is another issue that I need to understand. There's talk about the lockdown instruction or policy that was given, perhaps as from the 16th of December. Who issued that instruction? Is it the Camps Bay Business Initiative? Is it the City of Cape Town? Who did that, so that we know exactly where this came from, so that there's law enforcement that needed to be done at that point on the 23rd, and getting people to leave the space? The second one, everybody says there's nothing like a rape case that was reported. Not that it might not have happened. I don't want to get into that space. A rape case that was reported on the 23rd of December, as it's the main issue we're dealing with. Who generated these kind of rumors or lies that there's a rape case? Or was it an issue where people wanted to hide racism behind sexual offenses, which did not exist? Because there must be a reason why somebody had to lie to the general public, talking about some sexual offenses which might not have actually existed. We may need to know if that is the issue. Chair, Sarah earlier on made an input and indicated that if there's no written contract in terms of their code of conduct, no, in terms of their own regulatory measures, no member organization or so to them should be able to do work. Otherwise, it will mean they are violating that code of conduct. In this particular regard, it may mean that PPA did violate the code of conduct of Sarah in that particular regard. Chair, as I conclude or move towards a conclusion, there are two things I want to understand. When PPA gets people who in these public spaces may be having dangerous weapons, I saw what Sarah indicated, but I want to get it from PPA. What do they do? Did they ever arrest anyone, or there were cases wherein people were arrested or charged by them? And on that date in question, what eventually happened? Let alone the picture that says at 2030 there was still some activity in the beach, eventually at what point were people cleared, if they were ever cleared? What happened? Did people have a time, like if you say you were not enforcing anything, meaning that you did not cause people to leave, you just warned them. Did people remain? If people remained, what race did those people represented? Or did those people represent, rather? So that needs to be understandable. The last point, Chair, was there in terms of the city, even in terms of DIA, I know DIA has not completed its own investigation, which will want to understand that investigation ultimately, even the investigation by the city itself, even the investigation by SIRA, perhaps ultimately we'll need all of those investigations coming to us. But to PPA and everybody else, if PPA does know about the Integrated Coastal Management Act, if you happen to know, was there any violation of the ICMA to which you can then point? Because that will assist us to understand whether we need a reviewal, if perhaps that does not allow people to gain access into these beaches. If there's anything that in terms of the law needs to be amended, we may need to be aware that the law as it stands does affect people, and then they may not have access as we want them to have access. I did not get that coming from Dia's presentation. It's as if the way it is, the law is fine, and there may be no need for legislative changes or amendments. May that be confirmed, Chair, with us so that we understand whether there's need for any intervention from a legislative point of view. And if there's nothing like that, we'll be fine with that. Chair, thanks a lot. I just hope that whatever we gain as some lessons from this incident will guide even DIA in terms of how you are assisting municipalities or local government going forward, how management of our beaches should be done, so that we don't come back to this kind of a situation in future. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to, Honour Khadebe, you'll come in the second round. You'll come second round, Honour Khadebe. PPA, on your document that you submitted to us, the second page, on chronological cycle of events. The last paragraph, it says that during this period, many incidents of violence and rowdy behavior took place in the area, such as common assault, public urination, fights and stabbing, as well as drunk and antisocial behavior, which did not only affect beachgoers but also PPA clients in the area. And then you say, please see the attached pictures of confiscated items. That picture that both yourself and the city have produced here. Now, the custodian of records of crime in this country is with the South African Police Services. They are the lawful custodian of this information. And we've just heard from the police that they've looked at the incident. What is that book where they record all the incidences? That the situation as you are presenting now is not the same as what was reported on the occurrence book. What do you say to that? do you want to contradict the police as the custodian of the record of crime, or do you have better records that speaks to the situation that the police does not have? And the city of Cape Town. But before I go to the city, I still need to understand why would PPA go to the beach and conduct all these things that is been reported that they were doing there. If there is no agreement with the city of Cape Town and there is no agreement with the South African police, why would you take it upon yourself to do law enforcement on a public place like a beach? Because quite clearly the pictures that you are producing of items confiscated from the people is as a result of you doing law enforcement on the beach, which is public property. Why would you want to do that? Because it's almost consistent with what the members of the public are saying, that you approach them, you ask them to live on the beach, and when you know that you've got no such mandate to conduct that kind of business. Because your business must be with your clients. Your clients have got properties, you must go and look after the properties of your clients. Why go to a public space when you know that you are not supposed to be there? And with the city, now the last paragraph of the statement by the mayor, which reads that subsequent to the events, I met with the security company PPA and the local ratepayers who hired PPA as a consequence of criminal activities on and around Clifton Beach in the weeks preceding the incident under discussion. I hear that the mayor is also making a statement of fact that there's been an increase in the number of criminal incidences reported, and the police says there was no such. And this information seems to be consistent with what PPA is alleging. Now, first, it's this picture that is sort of a coincidence that it appears on both the presentation. And secondly, is this statement which seems to be consistent with what PPA is saying. And still there is a denial that there is a working relationship. Because from me, there is the contract. From me, where I'm standing, there is a lot of similarities between what the city is saying formally and what PPA is saying, including the fact that this incident is characterized as a political is characterized as political. I just want to quote from what PPA is saying. The last paragraph of PPA say, we would like to emphasize how highly unfortunate it is that this situation has escalated to this major political situation simply because an ANC member misinterpreted the situation on the day. So you characterize this situation as political. The same is said on the statement of the mayor, where it's also characterized as political. Now, all of these things are, is it a coincidence that there is so much similarities between what the PPA is saying and what the city is saying in terms of all the issues that I've identified? Because for me, it looks like you are singing from the same hymn books. Both of you are characterizing this as nothing else but an incident where the beachgoers were asked to leave and not forced to leave. And we know that they had no business in asking anybody on the beach to leave the beach area because it's a public area. Do you want to say anything in terms of that is concerned? All of these things that I'm raising. And on page 5, the third paragraph of the mayor's statement, you say that the mayor says that whilst the last week of 2018 was a painful reminder for many of a terrible and unjust past, I believe there are positives to come out of this. Why do you characterize it as a painful reminder? If you don't believe that, if you don't believe what the community members who were on the beach are saying, because these are the lived experiences of the people who are on the beach. Me and you and anybody in the room cannot say that is not the experience of the people, because it's a lived experience, it's what they went through, which reminds them of what happened in the past. Why would you want to deny that this is not the lived experience of the people, but on the other hand say that it is a painful reminder of the past? Do you want to comment on that? I don't think we should pose questions to the association, the policing forum, because they are not one of the stakeholders invited to come and make a presentation. They had to piggyback on the homeowners association there. But what we know is that the homeowners are not involved in this because they've never appointed the PPA. So I wouldn't want them to come again and respond because it will be unfair to them. They have not been identified and asked to come and present to us as a stakeholder. Where do we start? Whoever is ready, there are questions to the city. Oh, by the way, MMC, I thought earlier on when you were presenting and when I referred you to the picture, I thought you were saying that you got the picture from the lifesavers. I thought that's what you said. So it's no longer the lifesavers, now it's from the CCTV camera of so which version is the right one, MMC? Okay, it looks like the SAPS wants to start first.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm going to be answering 2 questions, and I'll give one of these answers to General Vieri, I think about 2 of them. One of the questions has been whether there was any suffering on the ship that was slaughtered on the day. He will be responding on that. The question that I want to respond to right now, it is this question that is related to a decline in the SAPS. I think I've tried to address this matter earlier on, just before we started with our presentation. And the reality is that if you are dealing with fixed establishments and the resourcing of big organizations like the SAPS, there is always an element of fluidity in terms of those fixed establishments which are brought about by natural attrition. When I addressed this misconception earlier, I was addressing the perception that SAPS has about 4,000 members that are short, that we are short of in this province. And I did indicate that we in fact have 1,376 operational members that we are short of as we speak. And it is a matter that is receiving attention, and by the end of this year, we are going to be given 1,070 members. But as I say, when we deal with fixed establishments, there's always an element of fluidity. So that is the first issue that I want to address. And the other issue that I want to address, it is this issue where there is a question as to why do we seem to have requested the security on a regular basis for assistance. I think when the PPA presented, they cited only one incident of a constable Lakay who phoned PPA for some assistance. I did not hear of any other incident where we've asked PPA for assistance. So it is not true that due to what could be viewed as shortages which are being experienced in SAPS, that we are now requesting security assistance for security. What is true is that we do have some partnerships with them, but we have never been so desperate in terms of the resources that we have to ask them for assistance. And this other question as to whether there were any crime records 3 months prior to the incident which happened on the 23rd. We are getting information, operational information and operational stats which is related to the incidents that are happening in various areas on a daily basis. And we then reorganize ourselves and we divert our deployments according to the crime patterns that emerge from different areas from time to time. So we would have known if the situation had gone so much out of control in the Fourth Beach area and the areas of Camps Bay. And that is why even our deployments, which General Mangle spoke about, of 129 members that were deployed in that area, it was informed by the patterns and trends that we keep on monitoring. So we do have such records, but we don't have them handy because we did not know that this house was going to ask for them. So those are just the questions that I wanted to address. So General Vieri can address the question that is related to the rape on the 23rd and this issue that is related to whether the sheep suffered any pain or whether the sheep did not suffer any pain that came to our attention. General Vieri.
I think the chairperson, the simple thing is just to repeat, there was no rape on the 23rd.
Sorry,
The mic, yes.
just speak to the mic.
I
You
am
don't have
speaking.
one next to you.
I don't have one broken, yeah, I can
Yeah, just move.
Chairperson, as I have stated before, there was no rape reported on that day. What I have referred to is the fact that I actually went and deliberately checked because I was the duty officer for that period and it was my responsibility for that week to go through all beaches in the Western Cape together with some other officers of my colleagues who were with me. So I did go and check and I only found an OB entry related to an attempt by someone known to a young woman to rape her. But that incident, the community, the immediate beachgoers and the family intervened, took the suspect to the police station with the young girl, but then the family did not want it to be resolved in that particular way through making a case and decided to resolve it together. So that is the incident I am referring to for that particular day. There is no rape
Okay.
that they reported.
Just on the rape incident, because it's in the official record of PPA that there was a rape incident where the young lady was raped, and the community had to assault. I don't know whether the person, the victim or the perpetrator, but they are referring to that kind of an incident.
I don't want to describe the word assault because there was no case registered which we investigated in order to prove an assault. But what I do want to say is that the women who were around there accosted this man, intervened with this man, restrained this man, dealt with this man in order to control him and take him to the police station.
Okay.
So that is what happened. That is what I have in the OB in front of me, in the occurrence book entry as that. In the absence of any case docket, to use any term to speak to specific charges such as assault as defined in our criminal law would be premature and would be incorrect. Chairperson, if I could continue.
Yeah, please continue.
I return now to the matter of the actual animal suffering there, and I want to talk to that. Firstly, in terms of when I was speaking out of the Meat Safety Act and the 2004 regulations after the Act, the sections I was referred to. But I also directly observed this process, having been there. And when I came to speak on my observations here, I grew up in a family where I was taught how to slaughter animals and did so indeed. I am able to speak from practices, therefore, that I am very familiar with. But let's start with the matter of the law first. The only reference to the method of slaughtering itself is not an act of cruelty. It is the way it's done. The only legal references we have is the regulations that come from of 2004 that comes from the Red Meat Act, from the Meat Act, or Meat Safety Act. And that regulations, I quoted, Section 74 deals with bleeding. This is now the act of cutting. Now it does say that a separate and clean and sterilized knife must be used to bleed each animal. That if you're in multiple slaughtering, that's a provision. The animal must be bled by severing the jugular veins and carotid arteries on both sides of the neck using a sharp knife, or in the case of pigs, by sticking and severing the anterior vena cava or aorta at the base of the heart. That description there is the technical description, is law. It is consistent with the way we in our communities also slaughter animals. It says further, it prescribes in Section 75 the bleeding times. So I observed consistency with that. The bleeding times is animals may only be dressed after having bled for 8 minutes for cattle and horses, and 6 minutes for calves, pigs, and sheep.
Please don't go into too much detail.
I just want to say, in order to illustrate, the law prescribes, Chairperson, the way these things must be done under this law, this act. What my observation was, it was done like that. Now
well, you see, we are not, maybe let me just come in here. Our committee is environment. We are not agriculture and this other we don't have the authority to get into that space. What we are probing now is the restriction of access. I appreciate that that issue is coming in about the slaughtering of the sheep, but we are not the competent committee to be able to probe that one because we don't even have the know-how. What you are quoting is not something that we deal with here in the Portfolio Committee of Environment, but it helps to provide context. But let's not get into too much detail because it's not really our competency. Another committee may want to probe this matter further, which will not be this committee. I appreciate your knowledge, and it's good that you are, but let's step off that one. I think the response that you have provided is adequate.
Thank you,
to say, look, based on your knowledge of the law, there was nothing wrong that was done on that day. Let's just step off that one and then get to the other ones.
That will be all that
Oh,
we needed
are you done? Oh, that was the only question. All right. Thank you, General. DG?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just to repeat what I said when I introduced our presentation, Honorable Member Peden. As I indicated, my correspondence did not start all of this. I was called by the Minister on the 27th, 28th, alerting me to what she informed me as a matter that is about a saga that is broken out in Clifton, related to people being told to vacate the beach. And two, that there is a further community protest that is involving slaughtering. So she wanted the department to prepare or give an input because she was going to be in a media. And I had not seen any of these. I had not seen any media. I didn't have access to TVs where I was. So I alerted her that I'm not aware of the matter, but let me check with the city officials. I then communicated, I tried to reach Judy, and I was looking now on my messages. She did not respond until midday on the 28th, because herself, she was also out of town. So in the end, what I then advised Minister was on matters of access. What the ICM Act regulates is the coastal access. And I explained what that means, but then that would provide the relevant sections for her and her media person to prepare a media response. Two, that the Integrated Coastal Management Act regulates dumping and effluent discharge. Therefore, the matter of slaughtering would not qualify in terms of dumping at sea unless the slaughter was happening in the water, because that would begin to lure sharks and other animals in the sea. So in my understanding and explanation in that discussion with the minister, I was then clarifying that that would be a matter that relates to beach cleansing, control of public nuisance, which is regulated by the municipality, not by the national department. And the minister then informed me that she's going to have a conversation with the mayor, Mayor Don Plado. And on the basis of her discussion, I'm not sure that they spoke or they spoke through the media engagement. I then said to her, at least the least I can do is to investigate and communicate with the colleagues who are the officials of the municipality. That's how I initiated the letter. So the letter was writing because we're trying to call. In fact, I didn't even know the municipal manager. The acting municipal manager, myself and Judy, then found out who the official was. And fortunately, Radia was around town. I could not even print where I was. We communicated and I looked on the email, we confirmed the content, and then I requested Radia to then deliver the communication. Hence, it was signed off by her because I did not have access. So the letter was seeking to first establish the facts because we wanted to be sure of how we should be responding with the municipality. As you know, we work on a function that's a concurrent function between ourselves, the provincial office of the MEC, and the municipality. And therefore, that process unlocked those engagements. Hence, when we came back, we received the response, and some of the team members were not yet back in office. And the first meeting happened last week. So I'm saying I am only on official. I cannot say I cannot present. We had to come and present ourselves to the committee. However, we did mention to the chair that at this point in time, we're still investigating. We have no action plan that has been agreed with the city as yet, and even with the province, because this was the initial correspondence that we received a response to. So that is what I can say in responding to your question. Thanks. And also, I think I've answered also briefly Honorable Member Steenkamp, but there's one more aspect that Radia must add on. Thanks.
Radia?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I believe Honourable Steenkamp asked about the pictures, where they were exactly. On the top two, the top left and right, were in Salt Rock, North Coast KZN. The bottom left is Eerserrivier in the Eastern Cape, the example that I was citing in my presentation, and the bottom right is Plettenberg Bay in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Okay. Do we take PPA or City of Cape Town, and then you'll be the last? Eh? You don't want to be the last, you want to come now? Okay, let's take PPA.
Honourable Chair, the question was raised on the pictures, the one that had the alcohol in, and they asked when was that picture taken or when was it confiscated. That happened on the 23rd of December. The next question that was raised to us was, if we guarding the property, why were we then on the beach? As I mentioned earlier this morning and referred to pictures, the barriers or the perimeter of the property of some of our clients there reaches out to the beach, right to where the walkway is. So we were asked by our clients to protect the residents and surrounding areas of their property. So, I mean, these questions and things came due to the criminal activity that, according to them, caused the problem and their concern, and was the reason for them hiring us to provide our service. So we were not acting as law enforcement officers there. We were merely acting to the best interest of safety and doing our job to secure the safety of our clients.
You know, Honorable Steenkamp is saying she has got security at a place, security people. They are looking after her own place, not the next door neighbor, because they are paid by her. And she asks, why do you have to the next door when you have been paid by myself to look after my property? The same thing is applicable to say, why go to the beach? Because they don't own the beach, your clients. They own their property. It might be encroaching on the beach. That is another matter actually that needs to be undertaken. Why encroach in a public property in the first place? Is it allowed? Does the bylaw allow that kind of an arrangement? Because those fortunate South Africans who are staying next to the beach, who have got properties there, sometimes they also encroach on a public space by building their properties in such a way that they then take a public space, a public property. That is another debate for another day. But the point here is that a beach is a beach, it's a public property. Why would there be confusion that your clients would want you to go and monitor the beach when you're supposed to be monitoring their own property? Isn't it this the same confusion that led to you to go tell people that they must vacate, they must move from those places?
Honourable Chair, as I was saying, the properties, the border of the properties, the perimeter on both sides, on the parking side, which is normally the main entrance, and then also it borders on the pathway or the walkway or either directly to the beach or the rocks on the fourth beach side. So in order for my security personnel to secure where they need to walk around to the other side and be on the beach side of the property.
I don't understand that logic, but proceed. I really don't understand that logic. Maybe that's why you are missing it. A public property is a public property that belongs to the public. You have got no business regulating the activities in that public space. That's the point that I think we are making here to yourself.
That's noted, Honourable Chairman.
May I ask, was there were you involved, or your people involved in any other law enforcement outside of your client's properties? Because I've just heard a lot of stories about how PPA is doing law enforcement everywhere around the Clifton area.
None that I'm aware of, Honourable Chair.
Not that you are aware of, but it's possible it might happen. It might have happened in the past.
Well, what I'm aware of is the information that I have from when we started there. And
Okay.
as I said, the relationship that my officers and law enforcement and SABC have within that area.
Because we have got 2 reported cases that have been investigated by the police, where your members were involved in the assault of the vendors there.
Honourable Chair, all 3 of those criminal cases were withdrawn this morning, or 2 of them. 2 of them were withdrawn this morning
Withdrawn by who?
by the prosecuting authority. I just received it a few minutes ago.
That all those cases were withdrawn for lack of evidence to prosecute.
I don't know what the reasons for that is, Honourable Chair.
Okay. But so the point is that there has been reported and actual cases open where your members were involved in altercations with members of the public, including assault, allegations of assault. So which confirms the point that you are not concerning yourself around your client's property. You are all over the place there, beating up people, telling people to leave the public places and stuff like that.
Honourable Chair, as far as I'm concerned, those are all allegations.
Okay. But what do they say about the reputation of PPA? All these things. About the conduct of the company itself in that area.
Honourable Chair, if I may ask, who are you referring to? Who?
I'm saying all these issues, reported cases of beating of vendors, of altercation with the beachgoers, what do they say about PPA in that specific area of Clifton? I mean, your conduct, they've just been withdrawn today. We don't have any confirmation. What we do have is that the police says that you have, there are 2 charges that they are being investigated by the police, which involves members of your organization, of beating up people there and so forth. I'm asking, what do you think it says about PPA as an organization and its credibility in that area?
Honourable Chair, may I assist Mr.
No.
Chris? No?
No, you are not allowed. Unfortunately, it's not a court, this one. You can write down and give it to him. He has to talk to us.
Honourable Chair, we were informed that this is a fact inquiry and not an interrogation or something looking into the character of our company. And we are here regarding answering questions that happened on the 23rd.
So you think that we've got no right to ask any other question? I'm asking you a question.
Honourable Chair, sorry.
Yes, I'm saying I'm asking you a question which I think you must, this committee and the rest of the society deserves to know about the conduct of this company that has assumed, you know, public functions of going to the beach, regulating activities, doing all of these things, charges open against your members of assaulting people, very defenseless people, the vendors on the streets there. I'm saying, what does it say to the credibility of your company?
I have no comment on that, Honourable Chair, not at the moment.
Okay. Proceed to answer other questions.
The other question that was asked was, are there any other security companies working in the Clifton area? Of which my answer is yes. Except for us, we have also Bay Response, ADT, Talon, and then several in-house securities where private clients have their own security in-house.
Are you done?
Yes, Honourable Chair.
Okay, who's next? City of Cape Town.
Thank you, Chairperson. I don't know if the ladies wanted to speak before. I don't know if there was an indication to. Okay. Chairperson, I want to be able to run through some of the comments that you have made. I think as Chair we'll start with that and then go through the questions that have been posed to us by the various members. Chairperson, I think it's very important at this stage for me to be able to step back and say quite categorically that the references that you have attempted to make in terms of insinuating that there was some form of collusion between the City of Cape Town and PPA is incorrect. There was no form of collusion, no form of conspiring, no form of conversation that has taken place between us and PPA. And I want that to be clear for the record and reflected accordingly, because the attempt to mislead those in this room is not fair on our efforts as a city to clarify and present the facts as we have attempted throughout the day today. I also want to take that.
No, I was just saying, is it a coincidence?
I'm going to come to that now, Chair.
Okay.
So I want to make my way then to that question that you have raised in terms of whether or not is it a coincidence that there seems to be some similarity in terms of making reference to the fact that this seems to be or may be perceived to have been a political effort on behalf of the ANC. And so I want to then draw the attention to three different documents which have been issued by various entities, and to address also the letter that we've received by the DG. So on the, noting that these occurrences took place on the 23rd, on the 26th of December, the ANC statement had been issued. The wording here, in terms of the headline, ANC outraged by 4th Beach shutdown. It then goes on to say security company wanted to kick off this beach. It goes on to say that the beach was closed at 8 p.m. The beach was cleared, and all of these were mischievous claims by what one would assume to be a politically desperate political office bearer. Then I take the committee and those present to the next statement, which I believe must be read with the first one that I've just gone through. And this, Chair, with respect to you, is the statement that had been issued in your name on the 28th of December. Headline again, or the heading, Environmental Affairs Committee appalled by and condemns the racist removal of black people at Clifton Beach. Right? That's the heading. So then if I go on to the first paragraph of the statement, it goes on to say that this committee is appalled by and condemns the restriction of access and the removal of black people at Clifton Beach in Cape Town on Sunday. And that this committee goes on to say that this is caused by, that it notes the public outcry that has been caused by this prejudicial act. And Chair, it goes on to condemn this barbaric and racist act of the unlawful removal of beachgoers by the private security company. Chair, then I make reference to the third letter which was received on the 30th of December by the DG, at that point asking facts from us. So these two statements that had been issued on the 26th and the 28th respectively had presented episodes of emotions, real emotions I can acknowledge as facts, which had then misled the public and the media, not only locally but internationally as well. Chair, then I make my way to the invitation that we had received by this committee. And again, as an indication that the tone of the message had started to change. And this speaks to the tone of the letter that we had received by the DG, which had invited or had requested information as part of what had taken place. And in the letter dated to us the 25th of January, signed by yourself, Chair, it had here invited us to participate in this inquiry. And what is clear from here is that those perhaps misleading references to outrage that had previously colored your initial statement had been removed, and what it shows is that there perhaps is a clear understanding here that perhaps the facts still need to be found out, which is where we find ourselves today. So I urge the Chair then to not mislead the committee and those present to believe that there was some collusion between us, because as has been presented to you in your various letters, it's not illogical for us to assume that there is perhaps a political desire to paint the issue of Clifton based on the presentation and the letters and media statements that had been issued. Chair, with that, I want to be able to touch on the point that you had raised in terms of the statement that had been issued by the Mayor, page 5, where Mayor notes that while the last week of 2018 was a painful reminder of our terrible unjust past, I think we must be careful here, Chair, to not belittle the emotions that has been experienced by those that have found themselves on the beach, because as I've noted in my presentation, those emotions and memories are real. And that is why at the very beginning of the statement, we had noted that any episodes of racism must be taken seriously, because as a city, it is our priority to be able to ensure that we are inclusive, that we do foster a sense of social cohesion and social integration. And again, as I noted in my closing, that we use these spaces as spaces for reconciliation, again acknowledging the pain that had been experienced, noting that there may have been some emotion in the understanding of what had transpired on the evening. Because again, I must clarify and categorically state that at no point was anyone on the beach kicked off, forcefully removed, or any form of violence used against them, but rather based on the episodes of the 16th and the 23rd, as has been discussed at great length this evening, or this afternoon still, there was a request by those on the beach for the beachgoers, beach patrons to recognize that there was a concern for their safety, which the law enforcement officers had been alluded to, at which point the request
Can
then
I-
for beachgoers to be aware of that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Chair. it's-
There seemed to be a very emphatic statement from the city and from the mayor that what happened on the day was that the beachgoers were asked to leave, were politely asked to leave, that this place, there was violence before, there is crime, can you please leave? Because the mayor is presenting it as a statement of fact. Now, please help me to understand that, because what we know is that it was only the beachgoers and PPA. The city of Cape Town was not there. There was nobody from law enforcement from the city of Cape Town. So how could the mayor make such a very bold and emphatic statement on developments which took place when he was not there, or any of the people working for the city were not there?
Thank you, Chair. Can I answer?
Yeah.
So also part of the presentation that I had made initially was the fact that on the 28th of December, the mayor had made his way to the beach the same day that the Deputy Provincial Police Commissioners had found themselves there. And it was at this occurrence that the mayor had walked the length and breadth of the beach, engaging with the communities, at which point his understanding of the occurrences had then taken form. With regard to the emphatic nature of my contributions, again, I think it's important for us as a city to not belittle the emotions, the feelings, the memories of those who had struggled for so long to be able to open up our spaces, not only within the city, but across the country as well. So the pain, I acknowledge, is real. And for that reason, it is important for us as the city to be able to clearly state that at no point was anyone forced to leave the beach. And Chair, you rightfully note that on the 23rd there were, as has been noted by Mr. Mai and confirmed by us, that there were two PPA officers or personnel who had informed the beachgoers of the fact that there was concerns relating to the security and the safety of beach users at that stage. But again, our information indicates that no one was forced off the beach at that stage, as is evidenced by the picture that we had shared as well, which we have taken from the media.
You see, why I want you to help me understand is that there are two versions. One is from the beachgoers, who says we were forced to leave this beach at 8 o'clock. The version that was presented by the ladies here. On the other version, there's a version of PPA. And the city seemed to be relying more and placing more weight on the version of PPA and disregarding the version of the community members who were there. I'm asking, why would we be so confident and so bold about the version of PPA and disregarding what the members of the community went through?
Thank you, Chair.
I'm just asking, you may not respond to that, but
No,
you know, you see, these are questions to ponder. As you are listening, you say, but already you are taking sides and there are two versions. Shouldn't it be correct to say, look, as the city, we were not involved there, we don't know what happened, there are two versions, we don't want to associate ourselves with any of the versions? Is that not the proper way to respond to a situation like this?
Chair, thank you for that. And if you may allow me to clarify, the reason why we've addressed the question as you have raised is because there is an allegation that this was done in collaboration with the city, which I am now attempting to clarify, to say that in actual fact that is not the case. But so too, as you have noted, that there are two members of the public here who have shared their experience, but beyond just that, I've got accounts here in front of me that I'm happy to share as well as a separate document, which says, one moment. Yeah, yeah. And so too, perhaps if I can jump to the ANC Western Cape Provincial Secretary, where Faiz Jacob says it's disgraceful that a private security which appears to have operated with the connivance of the right-wing elements in the City of Cape Town administration ratepayers try to humiliate them. So, Chair, that is the reason why I need to answer this and not allow it to just go under the bridge, because here's an allegation that we've worked with this private security company, which is in actual fact not the case. So I hope that I've been able to clarify that. But beyond just the two stories that you've mentioned, I don't believe that there's two stories, because if we listen again very closely and clearly to what Mr. Mai has shared, is that the fact that there was, and she said it, that no one was forced to leave the beach violently. They were informed that there was a safety concern, and therefore they were invited or encouraged to leave the beach. But beyond that, Chair, I think the involvement of the city, beyond what I've just shared, is quite clear that there has been no involvement on the 23rd of December. Chairperson, then if I can go on to share some of the other concerns that you've raised. In terms of the CCTV camera, I apologize about not being clear about that, but if we look at the picture, the life-saving hut is directly adjacent to where the CCTV camera is situated. And again, as I've been corrected, that the CCTV camera does belong to the person who has employed PPA to protect their facilities. So the two buildings are adjacent to each other. I apologize for that confusion.
So it was not by the lifesaver, as you said earlier.
No, I apologize. It was directly adjacent. Chairperson, I don't know if you want us to go through the other questions that have been posed by the other members, or if you want to ask other questions for me.
No. Answer all the questions.
I will then hand over
All the
to
questions,
Edie
answer them.
Bosman.
When we're still on the CCTV, is it legal for a private person to put up a CCTV in a public space and to obtain pictures of people enjoying themselves, some of them in their bikinis? Is that legal? Who should I ask?
I'll pick up on that. The city's got a policy. Mr. Chair,
Okay.
are you going to take this?
Let me first start with the
Yeah.
police.
It is illegal for a private person to who sets up a camera for the purposes of his protection of his property or monitoring that activity to focus on the public outside of that space. We've gone through this type of thing previously with the issue in Constantia, where in certain streets people were doing a similar thing to manage to monitor traffic in the road and not monitor their property. So yeah, it is illegal.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you've received an answer from the SABC. If I can just pick up on some of the other issues that was picked up, and then also, Mr.
Also,
Chair,
you're fine with that answer.
well, the SABC, the police are the authority on that. The city's got a policy relating to CCTV, and we encourage people who do put up CCTV to register with the city, so we know where the cameras are, what network they're on, if they're tapping into the city's network for any power, and also we'll advise and assist them to make sure that they're not infringing on other people's rights, sir.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking aloud. You can't have a person putting up a camera on the street, monitoring people. I mean, he has got no business there. It's a public property. In the beach, when people are going up and down, the private citizens come and put up a camera to monitor the entire beach. Surely that's not legal.
Oh, then that would be
It
for
can't
the-
be legal.
That would be for the SAP to follow up then, sir. They've just mentioned it's illegal now.
Okay. And now we're here in Parliament. There is a picture here that was obtained illegally. Because if it is illegal, it means this picture was obtained illegally. This photo of people roaming the beach, enjoying themselves. under a surveillance of a camera that belongs to a private person.
Now,
And this picture gets to be produced in Parliament
yeah.
to come and make an argument which has been obtained illegally
Mr.
or
Chair,
from an
yeah.
illegal source.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just make a comment. I mean, since lunch, you've drawn about 6 or 7 conclusions, almost as if to infer that there's fault to blame. This is an inquiry. If there was to be criminal charges laid against us, then that would be a
my
different
brother.
process, sir.
You don't come here and tell us what to say or what to do. That's why you are making a mistake. Allow us to make comments, to make whatever comments or conclusions that we arrive is none of your business to dictate to us.
I'm not dictating to you, sir. I can't. You're the chairperson.
Yeah, you see, you are doing the same thing that that lady was doing. You are now engaged in a dialogue. I'm saying, leave us to make whatever questions, whatever conclusions that we want to make, because that's our business. That's why we've called everybody here, to come and make an assessment and inquiry. Now, if you want to get into the legal definitions of what the inquiry constitutes of Parliament, that's your business, but please don't come and dictate to us. We are not here to take instructions from anybody. We are here to do whatever work that we are supposed to do. Please desist from doing that. If you do that wherever you are deployed, you tell the politicians what to do and what to say, not here in Parliament. Please answer the question as we are asking. I'm saying that I'm thinking aloud. Here is a picture that has been produced to make an argument. And I've just asked a question. Can a private person put up a surveillance camera to take pictures of people walking on the beach? The answer is no, meaning that this picture has been produced illegally. It was illegally obtained. That's all what I'm saying. It's not for you to tell me that I can't make this conclusion. Please desist from doing that. Don't come here and tell us what to do. Do you still want to say something?
Yes. Mr. Chair, can I proceed? Mr. Chair, just one thing else. The letter that was sent by the department to the city was sent on the 30th of December, Sunday. It was emailed through to us on the 30th of December. I was the gentleman who responded to your letter at that stage. Mr. Mabandazai was on leave, and I was acting up until the 13th of January. So I'd worked throughout the festive season. So just to give you context, I was the one that actually responded to your letter, the one which you sent on behalf of the DG's office. Okay. Mr. Chair, there were some other questions that was asked in respect of the ongoing beach safety at Clifton. Subsequent to this event, like with the SAPs, there was additional staff deployed on the beach. We ensured an OB was kept on the beach for the day to record any incidents as they arose. And the city also made available additional overtime for our staff to work extended hours, especially on what we saw as our bigger or priority days to make sure there was beach safety. Just as a comment, Mr. Chair, on New Year's Day, we easily had about 300,000 people on all our beaches across the city, from as far as Silverstrom in the north, going right down to Hout Bay, Clifton, out on the other side, Mabisi, all those areas. And we had no incidents at all on that day of any incidents on the beach of people being restricted to access. In fact, Muizenberg was our busiest beach. They had about 60,000 people on Muizenberg for the day. We were fortunate not to have any serious incidents on that day also. So we've put in place for extra staff, additional staff and extra overtime. And then the issue in relation to the sheep. If I may just add to you, sir, on the day in question, which was the 28th of December, which was a Friday, in anticipation of a potential problem at Clifton, because there were notices circulating on social media, SAPS then called us together and presented a draft operational plan for the day, which traffic, law enforcement, Metro Police were part of. They had overall command for the situation. The operational commander was Lieutenant Colonel Brandt, and the overall commander was Major General Jordan. And our staff was subject to their command and control. The advice that was offered by General Vieri earlier about the situation, because our staff at one stage felt they would want to act, and SAPS's advice was the situation as such would not lend itself to being able to possibly keep the crowd under control and to prevent any further fill-ups. and the suggestion was that we would open up dockets, which was subsequently done. In terms of the city bylaws that was referred to, General Vieri did quote the Meat Act and as well as the regulations which were issued in 2004. One of the bylaws that was touted as being contravened was the Environmental Health Bylaw, which was to do with the disposal of carcasses and materials after slaughtering. And that is a bylaw made by the city, and it's administered by our Environmental Health section. I can't give you the exact specifics around the bylaw, as that's not something which my staff enforce often, but the Environmental Health Bylaw was an important bylaw relating to the disposal of offal as well as carcasses once they've been slaughtering.
So the bylaw referred to, does it exist or doesn't exist?
The bylaw does exist, sir. I can make sure that a copy is sent through to you.
It does exist.
Yes. It's the city's Environmental Health Bylaw, sir. It's called the Environmental Health Bylaw.
Okay, so it's not bylaws promulgated in terms of the Meat Safety Act?
No, sir. The bylaw is promulgated by the city. It's actually on the website. And the other legislation is national legislation, which is the Meat Act as well as the regulations. Those are made nationally. The bylaws are made by the city, sir.
Okay. Okay. Ladies here, do you want to, or the other ones, or still around? Okay. Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to just finally thank the Portfolio Committee for extending this invitation. I said it at the beginning, but I think it's a good opportunity for us to have just given the committee our story. But I think that it's very important for me because the way the interactions were between the City of Cape Town and the questions that were raised, I do think it could have been done in a much better manner. And I have to note that I take umbrage with the statement that was made by Mr. Badruddin that my presentation or the presentation was erratic and frantic. And I have to say this because the challenge that we're sitting with is that these issues are emotional. Racism and classism deeply affect people's lives. It hurts and it's painful. And to remain dispassionate is undermining and dismissive of people's real lives and what happened on the 23rd. Our history shows, or at least what happened here today in terms of the comments that was made by Mr. Badruddin, it shows the arrogance of the city who have no real understanding of what's really going on in the city of Cape Town. Because when we speak about an investigation, I would have expected the mayor at least to have contacted one of the 12. And I also take umbrage of the fact that I have been put together, or at least my daughter and my experience was the sum total of the political affiliations of the people who I joined at that beach. It's not right. And I think that the MP also raised that, and it's not appropriate. It's not appropriate. And I think that our experiences should not be reduced to that. And then also the statement that was made about logic and emotion. I think we need to be very clear. I'm in a much more privileged position to have come here. If it was anybody else, I think that that statement needs to be looked at too. Because let me say that I take that very seriously also. Women are emotional, women are hysterical, and then by fact it means that we can't think properly. And that is what I took from your statements. It is not appropriate. My passion, no, sir, can I, no, no, can I just continue?
Well, point of order is allowed.
Okay, sorry.
Chair, I don't think this committee can have people making presentations pointing fingers at members. I think she must withdraw that and answer the questions.
I am answering. Can I just, through the chair, apologize?
Okay, madam.
Yeah.
there is a point of order raised by Honorable Peden, and the point of order is sustained. You are not allowed to point at members when you respond to questions. If you don't remember the name of Honorable Peden, you can ask me. I'll say, you can say Honorable Member there, I'll say, oh, Honorable Peden. Is Steenkamp, is Khadebe there at the corner today? He's a bit quiet. And he's the one who talks a lot most of the time. And then it's Makovela here. So please don't point at members.
Okay, apologies for that. I can just say that it's again my passion and my emotion that are coming out through the chair. I just wanted to say again that it doesn't link. Emotion and passion should not be discarded at the expense of alleged logic. I also wanted to say that I attended, and I think that the pictures were very clear, that I attended on that day and who I attended with. So I really do not understand the purpose of asking the question again. Also, in addition to that, I think we need to make it very clear. What I was speaking about is the structural racism and the question that our MP Steenkamp asked. What was the structural racism? Everyone knows who lives in Camps Bay. Everybody knows who lives in Clifton. My question right at the beginning that I asked was, where I indicated, although the law has changed and we don't have the beach apartheid in our law books anymore, the challenge that we're sitting with is with spatial apartheid. How accessible is Clifton? How accessible is Camps Bay? How accessible are those beaches to the vast majority of our people? How cost effective is it? How safe is it for our people to be able to travel and then back to the townships? When will our coastal areas like Clifton or on the Atlantic seaboard have housing for black people so that they are not just temporary commuters? And when we speak about that, that is the structural racism that I'm speaking about. And in addition to that, one of the issues that I have is that with the shutdown, from what was reported here today, is that if all of these incidents happened in Clifton, in Camps Bay, then the whole of Cape Town should be shut down or curfewed at sunset, as it's dangerous for everyone, everywhere. Is the city of Cape Town also closing the beaches across the peninsula? What about areas such as Strandfontein? What about Madandi Beach? Massive problems with violence. So why aren't they keeping, what is the challenge? And that is the structural apartheid that I'm talking about. That is the challenges that we are speaking about. All beaches then should be shut down, as there's far more dangerous beaches than also what you've seen in Clifton. And that's the challenge that I have. And that is also through the chair. And also when I address this issue about structural racism, structural or spatial apartheid, that is the one issue. And that is how I'm going to answer you. But I also want to answer you with the fact is that there's an obligation on the city of Cape Town to aspire to substantive equality, which recognizes that it's not just the law, but it's also policies and clear practices put in place that only suits possibly a minority, and it's at the expense of the majority of our people. And it may appear non-discriminatory, but in fact, it's not. Because we can see that, and there was a slide which I showed, the presentation will be sent to everyone, where it was demonstrated that there is still economic segregation, and black people live separately from white people, and the areas where black people live are far more impoverished, while places where white people are living are usually high-income area. We showed this, I showed the statistics. So all I want, through the chair, through this portfolio committee, is if we want to build a unified country, we need to be able to understand that social cohesion requires us not to be colorblind. We need to be able to understand there's intersecting forms of discrimination and acknowledge that. because otherwise we cannot build a free and safe and open and transparent country. And I would have expected questions that would have acknowledged my pain and the pain of those that were on the beach, and not their political affiliation, because I'm going to make it very clear that I was not there in any form of, in terms of any political affiliation. I came here today to speak about my story. And through the chair, I'm going to leave it, because I hope that the City of Cape Town will take my number and Selena's number. And yes, we laid complaints with SAIRA. Yes, we laid complaints with the police. And hopefully, the City of Cape Town will also come and speak to us. And also ask me what happened, and not just to take the story of possibly PPA, or take the story of persons that was randomly on the beach walking on a day where they didn't even know what happened on the 23rd. I would have expected much more. But thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to have given my story.
Do you want to say something now? Are you done? There's 4 requests for follow-ups. It's 5 minutes to 4. Honorable Makubela wants to follow up. Honorable Peden wants to follow up. Honorable Steenkamp and Honorable Khadev. I don't know how to treat this one, because I don't want us to open another and spend more time in here. I think I'm going to overrule further follow-ups, and then just propose. Is it a point of order? Oh, let's hear the point of order.
There were questions posed that weren't answered.
Is it?
Yes.
I thought they've answered all the questions.
No, definitely not.
Okay, remind me of other questions that were.
I lodged a complaint.
All right, just hold on a minute. Let's
I
see.
think we need to know, did you lodge a complaint or will you lodge a complaint? Okay, that was one, so we need clarity on that one. And the other one was, on the said day, was everyone asked to leave or only people of color? You didn't answer that one.
Okay. All right, just hold on. Let me just find out from the members. Are there other questions that have not been answered? Okay. Are you able to answer those 2 questions from?
Chair, I think I...
Okay, just hold on a minute.
Chair, not necessarily to them, but I posed questions that were not answered.
Okay.
I'm not making a follow-up on the answers. I'm actually posing questions that I posed, which must be responded to.
Okay, just remind us, what were the questions?
Chair, one of those is that there's this lockdown instruction that was issued, which I think PPA...
So you wanted to find out who issued the instruction?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other one?
Is that eventually what happened after people were asked to leave.
Okay.
Can we be told what happened? People ended up leaving. What time was that? And so on.
Okay, so the lockdown will PPA and City of Cape Town, whether there was a lockdown.
Yes.
What happened after that?
And the other was whether there was any violation of the Integrated Coastal Management Act.
Or any violation?
Yes. And
this is for Dian?
Yes, Dian may clarify that one in terms of their own view. The last chair, whether there was any arrests or anything like that done by PPA when they find people in their view having violated or having dangerous things. Do they arrest? What do they do? Do they have such incidences? Just to share with us. The other, I take it, it's given that there's violation of code of conduct. Perhaps that's why it's not being responded to in terms of the industries or the sector's regulation, that they needed a written contract. Oh, yeah, sorry, Chair. The other, it was to the city. when I asked whether there's any existence of the policy, it was not referring necessarily to the meat and safety and so on.
No,
I
he
was-
responded to it. They said they've got bylaws.
Yeah, but that bylaw, what I wanted to know is whether it talks to the issue of access to the beaches.
Okay. Honorable Pede?
Chair, just to remind you that the ratepayers and the residents haven't had an opportunity to answer their questions.
Or the ratepayers? Okay, because your question was directed to the CPA, Community Policing for CPF. And I did say it's going to be unfair for them because we have not identified them as one of the stakeholders.
Chair, may I respond?
Okay, you'll come late.
Thank you, Chair.
You'll come later.
Okay.
Let's start with the, let's allow her to finish, and then from there, the city, yourself, PPA can decide who comes and then who becomes the last.
MP, pardon, I think I made it very clear in my statement that, or in the presentation that I made, that everybody was asked to leave. And that in itself was the challenge, because I asked to pose the question, who did that action benefit? And that's the problem that you have. And I think it's very challenging if we see the action in a very peripheral manner. And we need to be able to understand it. And the deeper understanding is that who ultimately does that action benefit? And it's not just about asking everyone. It's about what happened and who does it benefit. And I think I made that very clear. And with regard to the question around the complaint, I've indicated that we laid a complaint, we did, and I think I made it clear. And in addition to that, Selena Williams and Fatima Shabuddin also laid a criminal charge was also laid. I did not do that. My complaint is sitting with Sira. So I have done that. With regard to, I think that is the questions. I mean, I think I answered it, and I think it's very clear in the presentation also. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, DIA have already said they've got a follow-up meeting. So maybe from there they will determine whether there was a violation of a Coastal Management Act. So let's allow them space to do the intergovernmental and then get the Residents Association.
Thank you, Chair. The point I want to make is that you've suggested that the CPF are piggybacking on the Cancer Bay ratepayers. That's not strictly correct, because Mr. Bernard Schaefer of the CPF was invited officially in his own capacity by your secretariat under your signature. So if I can request that he can answer the question that was directed to us.
Well, well, the reason why he's not here is that indeed the CPF was identified
1 2 1 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Hours during December, 80 hours, 2 weeks extra. Not overtime, just on extra time being at office on weekends and working on the beaches. So just for information, I hear what the member's saying, and he's referring to the item, but no, sir. There was no lockdown, and as PPA has indicated, there's no agreement between the city. They've got no authority to work on the beaches. They've got no authority to enforce the bylaws. This was made categorically clear to them by email, and also in the letter I wrote to the office of the DG, sir.
Okay. So there was no lockdown. The reference to lockdown is incorrect. You want to come?
Okay. With regard to lockdown, one of the women that was with us, she arrived late, which was Caroline Peters. When she arrived around about 7:45, she was stopped by PPA security on top at parking level. And she was told the beach is closed, she is not allowed to enter. And she called us and she told us, and we told her that they don't have any authority, she can come down. So she was stopped. So when you talk about lockdown, I would assume that that is lockdown because members of the public was basically stopped from the top to come down. So whoever was on the beach remained on the beach. And the other question was what time we left. We left like after 9 o'clock, and people didn't leave immediately. But when we were instructed to leave, and not just us, people left gradually. And if you look at the photographs which Shiam presented, there were a lot more people than that 8:30 photograph that was posted. So again, you can't say there were lots of people on the beach. If you look at that photograph, there's not more than 30 people on the beach at the time.
Also, according to you, the instruction was given to leave, and then everybody did not leave immediately, but they started
Because
leaving.
they carried on.
Okay.
Like it's a wide area which they had to cover. They walked. And they
Okay.
basically started with us first because we were close to the entrance, and they
Okay.
followed through.
Okay.
So they might have gotten to the last people easily by 8:45.
Okay.
Thank you.
MMC.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to touch on the question which had been raised by the Honourable Member regarding the access to our various facilities and to confirm that there is a policy called the Integrated Coastal Management Plan that speaks exactly to what the Honourable Member has raised in terms of ensuring that the national assets, as has been referenced, belong to the people of our country, and that the City of Cape Town is custodian in terms of management of these facilities, but by so doing to ensure that it is accessible and open for all to use. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I think maybe let's just wrap up. But just in wrapping up, I just want to correct a few misconceptions in the House. There seemed to be an impression that we are targeting the City of Cape Town. That is not the case. If you read our statement, at the time that we were issuing the statement, and I'm going to answer Honorable Steenkamp, the information at our disposal at that stage was pointing to the fact that the company was acting under an agreement or instruction from the City of Cape Town. And we did say in the statement that we say purportedly, and that was later clarified by the gentleman who was saying that there is no agreement between PPA and the City of Cape Town. But when you look at our statement, we did say that we are going to convene everybody who is affected to come here, and so that we can get to the bottom of exactly what happened. I just want to to say that the city seemed to be angered by the public outrage that was generated by this incident. When you look at the mayor's statement, the mayor is angry with the media to say the way the media has been carrying along this. It's biased, it perpetuates a political agenda. People were asked politely to leave. This thing has been turned into a political, it has been politicized, the whole thing. I don't know why that is the case. Because an incident of that nature where members of the public are claiming that they have been removed from the beach by mainly white security officers, targeting them as mainly black people, it's something that is a cause for concern to everybody. Everybody must express outrage. We should not be angered by people who are telling us about their lived experiences, which are very emotional, which are reminding us of the past. It's not something to anger us, it's something that we must express, we must show empathy, we must sympathize with those people who were at the receiving end of that thing. That's why I'm saying it worries me. And let me just say, the reason why I was pointing out those things, I wanted the city to clarify why all this coincident. And there are four that I've picked up. The first one is the picture. For me, it's a coincidence that PPA comes with this picture to put up its argument, the city comes with a picture to put up the same argument. It becomes a coincidence for me. The second one is the tone of the defense, talking about the political agenda. The ANC is out, it's PPA is the city. The ANC is out to get to whatever, to politicize the whole thing. And perhaps she's right, if something happens to the beachgoers, should we really be interested in their political affiliation if something bad has happened to them? If a DA member hawks on the street and gets mugged, should we really be concerned about the fact that it's a DA member who was working there who got mugged, or who was shot by the cash in transit robbers? Should we be worried about the political affiliation, or should we be worried about the act itself? Why should we put more emphasis on the political affiliation? And that's the point. Why politicize the whole thing? Why make it political when it's the experiences of people who are on the beach? That for me, it's an issue which I find it and somehow, and it's the same narrative that comes from the PPA and it comes from the city, unfortunately. The same narrative. Instead of expressing empathy, expressing regret, we become defensive and we say the whole thing is political. That's the second coincidence that for me it's a problem. The third one is the use of what is seem to be the a statement of facts about crime that has necessitated the sort of the coming into the picture of the PPA. That there is a spike in the levels of crime and so forth and so forth. It's in the PPA submission. It is a City of Cape Town submission. And the police have just said to us there is no such a thing. There is no such a thing. And yet these things are presented as motivating for the involvement of private security at the public places there at the beach. The last one is it's the narrative that people were asked to live peacefully by PPA. Now, PPA says the same thing, the city says the same thing, that the beachgoers were asked politely. You see? And for me, that is the fourth contradiction, not contradiction, the fourth coincidence. To say, why would I remember the city? It's a government of the City of Cape Town, should not easily take sides. It's there for everybody in here. It's like the government of the Republic of South Africa. It's our own government. It might be led by the ANC, but it must act in the interest of all the people of this country. It must not choose political affiliation. So when people are at the beach and say, this injustice has been perpetrated on us, and then there is a perpetrator who says the same thing, or the alleged perpetrator, should, as a government of the people of this city, take sides? You are not supposed to say take sides. The least that can happen is to say, look, this one says that, this one says that, we are still investigating to get to the bottom of the matter. You cannot say this is the version that we identify ourselves with. There was no problem at the beach. People were asked to leave politely. What if PPA is lying? I'm not saying they are lying. What if the investigation later on proves that they are lying? And you as the city have already associated yourself with their version. I'm saying those are the contradictions that, not contradictions, they are the, you see, it's a versions that, two versions which are almost like the same. Two narratives, the same, against the voices of few people, despite the positions they hold in society, but they remain vulnerable when you compare them against the two powerful institutions. Compare them against the city, you put them against the security company. They are vulnerable. which side must you take, Honorable Steenkamp? And I want to get to your question. When you get people who are saying this has happened to me, I am the victim of this, and it gets reported all over the media, who must you side with in this instance? You see, me as an activist, as somebody who thinks that I'm progressive, I'll always side with the vulnerable, those who do not have power to defend themselves, those who only have their voices. I will not associate myself with the views of the powerful and those who have power to dominate and so forth. That's why we chose to listen and to believe the views of those who are affected, because those are the lived experiences. Those are the people who were there on that particular day. I've got no reason to doubt that they received that kind of treatment. That's why we'll always associate ourselves with the vulnerable in society. That's unfortunately how we were brought up. That those who don't have a voice to speak for themselves, those are the ones that you must always associate and listen to them and believe their stories. I don't think there's any reason for me at that stage to believe that they are lying. And in fact, the subsequent developments, even what was presented today, you can hear that you can actually make a conclusion that it was not a story that was made up by people. Actually, there was nothing that was happening. You can't still believe that, even after having received all of this thing. So that's why we characterize that as barbaric and racist. It is for that reason. And I think, having listened to what I've listened today, having received the information that we have received today, all the still unanswered questions, particularly about the role of PPA. Why do you enter into a public space when you know that you are not supposed to be there? Why do you want to control people's activities, people's movement, when you are not the police? You don't have the mandate. You have got no business doing that. Why do you do it nevertheless? Especially given all of these reported things, I still think that it's proper to characterize that as barbaric. But I just want to say that the lady here who is the advisor to the mayor, I think we need to say something about her conduct, because it does not speak well about the city of Cape Town. We who are here, public representatives who are elected to serve the people, we must always humble ourselves before the people. If we are called here, you are not called here to come and explain ourselves to members of the committee, but you explain yourself to the public. You can't come and exhibit this type of conduct. This is a very bad conduct. In view of everybody who was here, wanting to even intimidate those who are affected, it becomes double. Members of the public were subjected to this kind of a thing there. You come again, you repeat it in the full glare of everybody here. I think it's bad, and I think that's the message that we need to send to the lady. She's occupying quite an important position, advisor to the mayor, advising the mayor to take important decisions in the city, and yet you come and display this type of conduct. You are not just giving parliament and members of parliament the middle finger, you are doing that to your own constituents. And I think that needs to be condemned in the strongest possible manner. Well, I think the meeting was not premature. It's important that we had to convene this meeting. Unfortunately, we have said we must be a committee, we must be a parliament that is relevant to whatever that our people are going through. So we are not going to turn a blind eye. We are not going to police all the beaches, but if it's something that caught our attention and we think that there was an injustice that was done here, we are going to move in, Honorable Peden. We have said when we came up with the concept of colloquiums that we want to be an activist parliament, we want to be a parliament that is responsive to the needs of our people, we want to be a parliament that is relevant. So why turn a blind eye to something that is has caught the attention and the imagination of everybody in the country? Why do you do that when you have said you are an activist parliament? So this is the reason why we have convened this. We have not convened this thing to come and put the city of Cape Town on trial. I want to repeat. It's not the intention. It's not the intention. If it has come that way, I think it is very unfortunate, but the intention is to want to get deeper and understand what is the problem here. And I don't understand why do we have to be irritated when we probe something that is very uncomfortable like this, something that reminds people of the apartheid past and so forth. So we'll always do that. If there is something that we think that is relevant for this committee to get into that space, we are going to do that. But for me, there are a lot of lingering questions about the conduct of the security company, PPA. For me, unfortunately, say, your company here comes across as a private entity that is acting with impunity, that is assuming the role that you are not supposed to be assuming. Performing public functions, beating people on the street, getting people off the public places, the beaches and so forth. You are really coming across here as a private company that is not conducting itself very well. And I think we must support the investigation that is done by SIRA, that it must get to the bottom of this thing. We cannot allow this situation where a private company can just go in, start issuing instruction willy-nilly. We will never allow that. South Africa is a democratic country. People fought here to enjoy the rights that we have now. Freedom of movement guaranteed by the Constitution in the Bill of Rights. So nobody is going to say to people, hey, you must do this, you must do that. And the fact that there's an allegation about people beating up of vulnerable people who are trying to make a living on the streets of Clifton, that's even bad. So we can only say that we must support that that inquiry. But I think what this inquiry has done is to surface the issues, use this example of Clifton to say to any other person throughout the Republic, no one is allowed to restrict access to members of the public for the enjoyment of our beaches. We will never allow that, because that will take us very far. You know, sometimes people don't understand when you talk about, I hear you have been talking about structural racism, but there are inequalities in this country, in this society. that still continue to perpetuate racial inequality, about class, about gender, and so forth. And those are the things that we cannot turn a blind eye on it, because South Africa still continues to be an unequal society. And unfortunately, it perpetuates those things. I wouldn't call it structural racism, as she's saying, but it's inequality that perpetuates racial inequalities in society. Unfortunately, those things are there. We must be alive to this thing. We must confront them. We must not get irritated when we do an inquiry like this one to probe something that looks like a racist incident. Because for us to embrace the future, we must also acknowledge where we come from. The past is very important for the past to be acknowledged by all of us. That we come from a divided past. We come from a past where there was exploitation over the majority of our people. There was exclusion, and so forth and so forth. Acknowledge those things so that we can embrace the future together. But if you want to emphasize a future that we are almost all of a sudden coming from nowhere, it's not going to work. It won't promote reconciliation and so forth. But otherwise, those were just my closing comments. I think what we will do, we have been taking notes about this inquiry. At the end of the day, there will be a report. I hope Doc has been taking those notes so that we can produce a report that will also speak to the way forward, some of which I've just articulated what needs to be done. And then we'll discuss it as a committee. And then once we are ready, we can release it to members of the public. But I must thank all of you, the DG. We always start with the department because we exist to provide oversight over the department. So the fact that you are here, we appreciate, even though you are not the one on the hot seat today. The police, provincial commissioner, thank you very much, and your generals. I found your submission here to be very refreshing and straight to the point, cut into the chase. I always struggle with people coming here when they make presentation. I keep on saying, go to the point, cut to the chase. So you just did exactly that. And members, thank you very much. I saw you were fighting with me when we started. There will always be things that we agree. Most of the time we do agree with everybody in the committee. Honorable Peden is right. We always approach things as a committee, not looking it from the perspectives of the political parties that we represent. And I thought that we were going to do the same today, but unfortunately I was disappointed myself. I must say, Honorable Pardon, I'm also disappointed that we did not close ranks in looking at this thing. We looked at it once more from the political parties that we represent. But thank you very much, the city and everybody. I would like to thank you very much, including Sarah in absentia. And I'm going to declare this meeting closed. So let's adjourn the meeting. Members, we see each other tomorrow again with the Parks Board.